Hello, I've had some questions from people about how to use Zoom, so I thought I'd create this little short preview of very basic functions of Zoom. How do you get onto it? How do you use it? Where are the controls? Things like that. So we're going to do a little PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to share my screen with you, which is one of the things you can do with Zoom. I'm going to go to our slideshow from the beginning. And so Zoom, what is it and how do I make it work? So the first thing when you get onto Zoom is you want to make sure that people can hear you and you can hear them. So um, there are mute and unmute controls in Zoom, and it depends on what device you're using to log into Zoom, what those controls look like. So I'll repeat this several times through this, but it's kind of confusing because whether you're on a PC or a Mac, whether you're using an iPad or a tablet, an Android phone or an iPhone, they all seem to have a little different controls, a little different layout. So sometimes when you're doing something with Zoom and someone says, well, it's down there at the bottom. Well, for you, it might not be at the bottom, it might be at the top. But what you're going to look for, the main thing on a computer you'll see on the left is something that looks like a speaker icon and then a little video camera icon. On the phones, I found mostly it looks like something that says join audio or start video. So those controls seem to be the ones that you see on the phones and the tablets. Whichever one you do that, click on the audio icon to mute or unmute yourself. Now, most hosts, when they set up a Zoom meeting, will have the audio muted for everyone that joins automatically. So if you join a meeting and you're already muted where you weren't muted before you got on, that's why the host did that as a control. And that's just to keep people from coming on and a lot of noise happening when a meeting's already in progress. Although the host might have it so that it's unmuted so they can hear you come on and say, hey, I'm here. Um, Another good reason to join a meeting early is just to check that audio and make sure that it's working for you. The host may also maintain control over who can be muted and unmuted. So the host could say only the host determines who talks at any one particular time. And so your mute unmute button will change depending on what the host does on their end. Or the host might give you control. So they might say, oh, it's all right for the participants of the meeting to mute and unmute themselves. Good protocol, though, is during a meeting to keep yourself muted all times unless you're actually speaking. And then when you do speak, again, mute yourself back again after whatever you've said is done. That's just keeps a lot of the noise down for the rest of the participants, especially when you get into a meeting with 15, 20, 30, 100 people. I was on a meeting with recently. You can imagine if even just with people background noise, it gets kind of hectic. So try and keep yourself muted unless you're specifically talking at one time. If you have a headset, oh, I'm sorry, I meant to talk too about feedback. So feedback, when if you're hearing buzzing, audio sounds that are strange, echoing, things like that, it could be a couple of things. One is that if your speaker and your microphone are too close to each other, say you're using an external speaker or an external microphone, and they'll get some feedback and strange buzzing noises. But more commonly is that you have two audio sources on. You either have two computers in the room, or you have your computer and you're using your phone as well, or someone else in the room has their phone on while your computer's on. It's going to loop and get really weird echoey stuff going on. So make sure that only one audio source is on. So if you're going to use your phone for calling in, make sure that the audio on your computer is muted. That's real important. If you have a headset, that's the best way. You're going to hear better and other people will hear you better if you use your headset. You can adjust your audio settings on the computer apps, but I haven't found a way to adjust them on the tablets or mobile phones. I think it just goes by whatever the actual audio setting is on your phone, you know, the little buttons or however on your phone or device determines the audio sounds. So you would want to adjust those before you start the meeting to make sure that it's functioning correctly. But it's just going to fall back into the default of whatever that phone is. On the computer, you'll see these little arrows on the left, and you could click on those. It'll come up to a thing that says to test it, and you can go in and actually test whether your audio is working correctly. It will play a little thing and see if you hear it, and it'll also give you a chance to record your voice and then play it back and see if that's functioning. I really suggest if you're on a computer, you take advantage of these little up arrows there and test your audio device before the meeting starts. So what is Zoom? First of all, just the basics. It's a conference call. It's a way for people to communicate. You can do up to 100 people at a time. Nice way for people just to talk back and forth, just as a conference call without the video. That's one function. But it really, the primary use is with the video, because much of communication is nonverbal. So the being able to see someone and then being able to see you really helps the communication to work better. So try and have your video on when you can, just so other people can see you. Webinars is another way. That's more of just like a teaching function, so kind of like a YouTube video or something. There is some back and forth, but it's basically designed as a one-way communication from the teacher who's giving the webinar. All the calls and webinars can be recorded or live streamed to YouTube or Facebook, which is what I'm doing now, is recording it, and then I'll put it up for you guys to see. And how do you participate in it? How do you get into a meeting from the beginning? So you can join without using the app by either clicking on the link someone sent you for a Zoom meeting that's going to occur, or copy and paste into your browser that URL. And the URL is just like an example here where it says HTTPS : and all that other stuff. That's basically saying to your computer, go to this web page where Zoom has set up this special meeting room for us to have. And so Zoom has assigned to whoever's the host of your meeting a room. In this case, it's room number 291-409-1870. And in that room, everybody that wants to talk is going to join in the same room. So that URL sends you to the right room. A better way, though, if you can do it beforehand, is download the app and join a meeting through the app. So you can, when you click on that URL, it will give you a chance to download Zoom's app for your phone or computer. And you can also do it, your host may have sent you a link to download the app, or you can go to zoom.com. Look down at the bottom, there's a button that says download all the way at the bottom of the screen. You can click through there and join through zoom.com. Once you've got it, the app loaded onto, you can also go to, of course, your Play Store and all those things, and just type in Zoom and it'll come up, and download the app that way. Once you've got it downloaded into your device, look for the icon. It's going to be this blue thing with the white video camera in it. Click on that to open the app. It's going to look something like this, where it will give you some options to either directly join a meeting or sign in first. So you can just use the meeting ID number, that room number that someone sent you. Click join a meeting, type in those 10 digits room number, and you will be into the room, the correct meeting. But a better way is to sign in first. If you click that, that creates, that opens up your own application of Zoom, and your own personal settings are in there. So it's ways for you to like add a photo, to preset some of the things that you want. You can do some of that stuff. But so I would suggest, if you can, sign in first. If you've got an account already, you would just, do the sign in with the email and password. If you don't have an account yet, you'll see up here where it says sign up for free. Just click on that button. It'll ask you for your information, and you can create an account with an email and password. If you've forgotten your password, of course, click on that little dot over there, forgot, and it'll follow up through there. You can also sign in directly with Google or Facebook if you don't want to create an email password through Zoom's account. Once that application is open, and you're going to see a home screen that kind of looks like this. It's going to have these controls on the left side. So you can set up your own meeting. So if you wanted to have a meeting between, say, your family and friends, or just, maybe you want to just talk to a cousin that's across the country or something, you click on New Meeting and you can create a meeting at that time, right live at that moment. You can schedule a meeting for the future by using the button below that. You just enter in the date, time, and it'll kind of set up that information, and it'll create an invitation that you can then take that invitation and email it to whoever you like and say, hey, I'm going to have this meeting on this date. Here's how you get into it. You typically would just click on the button that says join a meeting. This is where you would enter in that member ID number again, that room number, that 10-digit number. Once you click on join a meeting, that's all you have to do. Enter those 10 digits and you'll be in the right room. And then the sharing screen, that's used for times when someone wants to see your screen and help you set something up, or if you want to join a meeting and have your screen shared. It's not something you're going to use very often. Up at the top or right corner, you'll see a thing with your picture on it, or a blank if you haven't put a picture in your profile yet. If you click on that, that gives you some options. You might play with that later on once you've set up your Zoom account. And then the little cog symbol also brings up some more settings that you can play with later. I'm not going to go over those right now. So what are the controls? So Zoom, like I said before, has controls in different places depending on which type of device you're using. On the PC, I know they're at the bottom of the screen. I think on the Macs as well, although I don't have a Mac. But look for the controls down there. The controls may look something like I'm showing here. They might be slightly different depending on the hardware that you're using. On an iPad, the controls are at the top of the screen, so just the opposite, instead of the bottom to the top. And I know on the Android phone and the tablets, the controls are at the bottom, but they automatically go away because I guess the size of the screen. So you don't see them unless you move your finger down near the bottom of your screen, then they'll pop up and you can see them. But then when you move away, they're visible for a short period of time, then they go away again. So if you don't see any controls at all, kind of just move your finger around different places, top or bottom, see if you can find it. Also, I've noticed that sometimes instead of having controls to click to different places, you just slide left or right, like changing a page. And so when you're in the phone app, for example, you slide left or right. And I think in the iPads as well, you move to a different page. And then once you've seen that thing, you just got to close that page out and go back to the main screen. So these are some things that you'll need to get used to depending on which device you're using. And I'd suggest you try and play around with them a little bit before you join a meeting. And again, a good reason why to join early and have your host maybe help you get through that. If you click on the three dots on the right side, by the way, you're going to get some more options. Those are always places for you to look for other icons and other things you can do. So remember the audio and video controls we talked about at the top or bottom of the screen. When you're using that computer, those little up arrows give you the ability to change the source of the audio and video as well. So if you can't see them and your audio or your video isn't working correctly, it might be that the computer Zoom program thinks that you're trying to use a different camera. And so go into that little arrow there, click on that, it'll come up and it'll be some show a dialog box with your options, and just try clicking on different ones and seeing if that gets the correct camera on that you're trying to use. For example, I'm using an external camera, not the one in my computer right now. Same thing with your audio. That little button on the side when you're using it in a computer goes up and you can change the audio source either through a headset, speaker on the computer, or wherever. Also on that, those little arrow buttons, you'll see a thing for testing. It'll allow you to test where the speakers are working. I'd really suggest you do that before the program starts. Again, go in there and hit that test button. It allows you, it'll play a little sound or be able to record your voice and play it back. And you can change the virtual background, which I think I'm going to skip talking about right now, but that's kind of a cool thing that just makes whatever's behind you look different. You can add a photo or, you know, the beach with a palm tree swaying or something like that. If you don't want people to see how cluttered your room is, you go to that little button there. You'll see one option that says virtual background and play with that. It's kind of fun. You can start or stop your video at any time. Don't think that just because it's on or just because it's off, it's going to have to be that way through the whole thing. You can start or stop it throughout the program, throughout the meeting. You might want to do that, say your dog ran in and you got to do something or whatever. You can just click on the stop video for a while, handle that, come back, turn your video back on, and people will see you again. Okay, the participants button. One of the things I think that's really cool in this program is this button that you'll see in your controls. It says participants. When you click on that, you're going to come up with a screen or a box on the side of your screen, or it'll take you to a separate page, again, depending on which device you need. You'll need to close or hit the back after seeing the participants to get back to the video section, by the way. So on those ones with the phone, you either swipe it back and forth to get from the participants window to the video window, or you click close. The video, the participants window is going to look something like this, depending again on the device. And what it'll have is a list of everyone that's on the call, everyone that's in the room. Typically it's alphabetical, although sometimes it changes depending on who's speaking or whose microphone is unmuted. They might be at the top. But it's going to show who's in the call and what they're doing. It shows some controls here. There's also some controls near the bottom of the screen here in your participants window. And when you click on those, it'll pop up in here so your host can see that. And to go more into that, those little controls at the bottom of your participants window allow you to do a couple things. One is to raise your hand. Say you have a question. So the host is talking. You don't want to interrupt him, or maybe they've muted you and you can't interrupt them with the audio. And maybe your video is not on, so you can't physically raise your hand and say, hey, I have a question. So you click on that button, it raises your hand, the host can see it and say, oh, okay, well, Susie, you know, what was your question? The yes or no buttons, those are to agree or disagree or to vote on something. So it might be that the host is talking about something and you just don't agree with him, or you do agree with him, but you don't want to, again, unmute yourself and say it verbally. You can just click on that button and say, yeah, you know, it's sort of an affirmation. Yeah, you're on the right track, or no, I don't think you're on the right track. Or it could be to vote for something. The host might say, okay, how many people think the meeting needs to end in 10 minutes? And say yes or no. Speaking of the time on the meeting, another thing you might say is it goes slower or faster. So if you click one of those buttons, it just sort of alerts the host, hey, you know, speed it up a little bit or slow it down a little bit. I don't really understand what you're talking about. On the More button, up there with the little 3 dots, when you click on that, I don't have I show the icons here, but they're just icons that show a thumbs up, thumbs down, applause, meaning you liked what the person was saying, or that you're going to take a break and you know, take care of the dog. So you might click on the break button so the host knows you walked away from your screen for a while. There's another button that you'll see that takes you to a chat window. Again, it'll either be a button in your control or it'll be a sliding across one way or the other with the tablets or the phones. The chat screen, this is a really nice way to communicate non-verbally during the meeting. So if you're, again, muted or you don't want to interrupt the flow of conversation that the host has, you might type a question, you know, how do I do blah, blah, blah. And then the host will see that, and then they can reply to your question when it's an appropriate time during the meeting. Or they might even have a co-host or someone else who's monitoring this chat section and who can type back an answer to you while the host is talking. So again, it doesn't upset the flow of the meeting and the way the host is presenting things, but it's a really good way for you to express an idea or ask a question during a meeting. You can do that to everyone. You can see it's down at the bottom of the chat window. This screen will have a button, and normally it will say everyone. So when you type in your question or comment here, everyone will see it. There's a little arrow though next to it, and when you click on that, if the host has set it up that way, you will be able to have a private message to a particular person. So let's say you're on the meeting and Susie's on the meeting and you know that, and you just think, oh God, that just reminded me, I wanted to say something to Susie about this, or what does she think about that? But you don't want everybody to see the question you had. Just click on that button, click on Susie so that her name is highlighted on there, and then you can ask her a private question. It can only go one-to-one. You can't ask a group of people. So it's either everyone or a particular person. Finally, on that chat screen, there's also this area where there's a file folder and it says file, and that's a place where you can upload. I'm sorry, I haven't been clicking my buttons here correctly. So you can upload the file folders or files that you might want to share with people. So it could be a document, a photo, music, whatever those files are. You click on it, it will upload it from your computer, just like uploading in any email program that you have. And then other members can click on it and download it into their computer. So that's a good way to transfer data, particularly that's something that somebody wants to share relating to that particular meeting. Might be the agenda, for example. Another way, though, to share information is through screen sharing. So the host or participants can share their computer, their phone screen, documents, or a whiteboard. This is determined by the way the host sets up the program. So they can set it up where only the host can share, or other participants can share as well. It's a great way to let everyone know about something in a meeting that they can see at the same time. So unlike in the chat window where you're just uploading and downloading a file, people aren't, they might upload or download at different times, or they may or may not see it, or they may not want to try and figure out how to download or during the middle of the meeting. But with screen sharing, the host or the participant, let's say the treasurer, for example, could share their screen, bring up a copy of the treasurer's report for that particular month or year or whatever, and see it, show it on the screen. And now everyone in the meeting is seeing the exact same thing at the exact same time, just like we're doing right now with this presentation. I'm screen sharing a PowerPoint presentation so that all of you can see it at the same time, rather than me just uploading the PowerPoint and letting you thumb through it on your own. So when you do screen sharing, this is kind of how it's going to look. Again, it will depend on the program that you're working with. The one on the left up in the top here, this is kind of what it looks like on a computer screen. And here on the right is what I've seen it look like in tablets and phones. So on a computer screen, you get little icons. You click on which thing you want to share, and then click the share button down here. You might also want to make sure that you click the button that says share computer sound or optimize screen sharing, because you want to make sure that the sound is being shared as well. So on a computer, look for those little dots. Don't forget to check those little buttons down there if that's what you want to share. And then you just choose which thing you're sharing, click the share button. On a phone, I think it's the same on an iPad, you just click on what you're going to share. It's a drive, a document, a photo, whatever, and then that will bring that thing up to share with the other people. The host controls who can share their screen, as I said before, and the participants can also, though, if the host has it set up right, annotate on the screen. So in other words, if I'm sharing this screen and I wanted to allow somebody to make some annotation, like maybe let's say they were gonna draw something. I'm going to draw something like this. So they could draw it on the screen, and they could maybe do some texting, something, or just have a mouse and show a mouse screen, or an eraser. So these things can be done by the host and or the members of the who are participating in the program. So again, you can all see the same thing at the same time. Okay, one last thing I want to talk about before we go is how you view things on Zoom. So there's two things. One is in the speaker view. So in a speaker view, you have one large view with the small thumbnails up either on the top or the side. So whoever's speaking, or it can be set that it's pinned. There's a particular person whose video is always the one that's showing up there. And then all the other people that are involved in the meeting are going to be little thumbnails up at the top or the side, and you could scroll through those thumbnails to see who they are and see what they're doing. Another way to look at it is this gallery view, which is here on the right. And it creates a grid pattern showing everyone in the meeting, and the person who's speaking is highlighted in yellow. So in this view, you might have, in this case, 3 people in the meeting, or you might have 50 people in the meeting. So there'd be a bunch of little videos or still shots of all the people that are in the meeting, and whoever's talking at any particular time, their little picture will be highlighted in yellow. So how you find where these devices are, or where this gallery view or speaker view is, again, depends on where you are. And the phones, we're back to sliding back and forth to a different page. And in the computers, look for the top here, a little click button that says either gallery view or speaker view. So you would change from, in this case, being in the gallery view to click on the speaker view, or in this case, from being the speaker view, click on the gallery view. One other button you're going to see in the computers can go to a full screen. When you do that, that's a nice way to look at it, but do be aware that sometimes the controls change and you won't see some things, like the participants or the chat windows may be hidden unless you're not in full screen view. So that's it. I hope that gave you a general idea how to get into Zoom, how to find your sound, how to use some of the simple controls. And one last thing, when you're done with a Zoom meeting, click leave to exit the meeting. Although the host or presenter will probably click, when they click all, they'll shut it down for everybody. But it is possible for them to shut a meeting down and leave other participants still talking in the meeting. If you have any questions, you can email me at smithandsack@gmail.com or give me a call at 916-712-6979. Happy to answer any question you have, and I hope this was helpful. Talk to you later. Bye.